Guys, so I want to show you guys a really cool tool that I've been working on for the past, I would say, 10 years. And, originally, I would say there were three ideas in my head. And one of them was Datamine. So basically this whole ecosystem for DeFi that we've built. And a big portion of it was always forecasting. So forecasting was sort of built into Datamine at one point, but what I did is basically I just took it out and I put it all onto client side. So it's no longer server side. Now it's just a TypeScript app that runs in browser. And what it can do is it can analyze data and find trends. So it's quant as in it finds you the trends that are in a data. And it's like mathematically proven that the trend is there, right? Because you can see it. So yeah, so I mean, I guess in my head, that's sort of how I always saw data is like, okay, it's just a bunch of trends, but now I can just use this tool and visualize it. So for example, here's S&P from the beginning, and here's all the trends. If we zoom in, we can see like, okay, here are all the trends. These are all the supports. It just looks like chaos, right? There's so many trends. So this is why the filtering on top exists. What you can do is you can say, let's go with min head duration. So what you can do is you can see how all of these are trends. Well, if you think about it, they're not really good trends because they just started like it didn't really bounce or off anything. So to me, this is noise, right? So if you increase head duration, let's say to 20 days, and we zoom in again, you can see how, okay, all of a sudden this is a little bit cleaner. And it's basically this, I'll just zoom in here. So basically head is this distance between the start of a trend. So you're basically saying, okay, everything before that must be empty because it must have been a bounce of something. And you can increase it, let's say it's 50 days. Right now, if we zoom in, you can see how much stronger that trend is. So I'll probably increase the, maybe increase the number here so you can go even more like years out. But you can see as you increase the days in between, the trends look a lot more realistic. So a lot less noise as well. And then you can see where the support lines really are, right? So you can see here, this will be a support, this will be a support, this will be support. Yeah, and from this you can use it to your advantage. Like you can just take a look at and see, hey, how's the market doing? Okay, we have a little bit of resistance, right? And but is it resistance? Like if you look at this trend, that's a very short trend. So what we can do is we can say, hey, it must be at least like 30 days. You know what? Make it 50 days. It must be going for 50 days. And what we're also going to say is, if you zoom in here, okay. So do you see how this is a trend? I mean, technically, there's nothing before this trend and has been going on for 50 days. But the distance between here and the forecasted length, it's just too short, right? Like, it hasn't really formed a trend yet. So what you can do is you can say, drag this to 50. And now all of that noise is gone. Okay, so now if you look, all the noise is gone. There aren't like a bunch of trends all along the way here. There isn't any here. And then if you look, okay, well, we're kind of far from any support, from real support, right? So to me, this is kind of a dangerous game, right? That let's say you were to go and buy nowadays, like in a stock, could you go up? I mean, yeah, but it's always safer to buy like closer to a trend because your thesis is, hey, it's not going to break this trend, or maybe it's not going to break this one, or maybe it's not going to break this one, right? And basically, this is your like thesis is like it's not going to break, or maybe you're coming in from the opposite direction. You're going to say, hey, this is going to break, and this is going to break, and this is going to break. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, I cannot tell you which way it's going to go, but I can show you where those trends are automatically. And of course, we can select like Bitcoin. Here's what Bitcoin looks like. We can say Ethereum. Here's what Ethereum looks like. And then, we can say like, okay, well, why don't I see trends here? Okay, you can, right? If you just modify this slightly, let's say 25, 25. Okay, there's your trends. You can see, you feel that Ethereum pressure, but then you can see this is Ethereum pressure, right? And let's say Solana, right? Up to 2023. Cardano, look at Cardano up to 23. It's just downward pressure. It's close. It's heavy. Like, scary to get on, right? So your thesis could be like, look, if we break out of this and we're somewhere here, maybe I'll buy it, or maybe I'll say, hey, I think this support is going to break. I don't think this is strong enough. So yeah, you can even like our coin, Datamine is here as well. And I think, where do I see, like, what's next for this project? Well, it will evolve, right? I'll add the ability to import your own data. So maybe, you can come in and import your coin, maybe exporting it and sharing it with others. I mean, there's so many possibilities because now it's all open source and it's all on a client. We can do cool things, and here are some cool new features. So now there's simulation. What simulation is basically a way for you to say, okay, let's pick something like S&P. So you can see a bunch of buys here. And basically what this does is basically it gives you $10,000 to like a simulation. And it says, find an algorithm that will use the trends data to get as much reward back as possible. So, and the way we do this, so like you can see some numbers here, so if you were to use these numbers, basically what you're saying is, okay, as long as you're making 20% per year and it is within 40% of the current price, then you can sell it, and then make sure that there's no other trend like this within 15%. So that's sort of the theory, but it's very complicated for me to say. Like, I mean, you can just play around with these numbers. Okay, if I change this to 10, I get different numbers. Okay, now it's 37, so it's not as profitable. I change this to 50, or okay, so 60, right? So okay, let's change this number. Say I want to make at least 10% per year. Okay, maybe about 15. 15. Okay, see, so basically the value below changes, the amount of trades change, where it enters, and then there's so many cool things here. Like you can say, okay, instead of using a percentage, every time use a fixed amount. Now, if I say every time use $500 to buy, and you can say like, okay, if you use this, you would have like invested 15,000, get back 19, and this is also accounting for things like spread. And then you can specify like, when do you want to start trading? I specifically started trading here on this dip because I wanted to see how it would perform when markets aren't just going up. Like, for example, if you enter from 1999, it doesn't really matter what you do, right? You will make. So a good example of this is Cardano. If you're just like, okay, let's take a look at Cardano. I picked this because it's a hard time. So it's literally just losing money, right? It's hard to enter anywhere because the chart is just going down. So how would it perform? And then, with these numbers, it would look like this. And then you can click this button and we'll scan all the like different possibilities, not all, but there's like a sample size of possibilities. And it'll say, here's like what I find, it was these numbers, I would perform like this. So if you look, this, like if I were to trade like this, I would only lose 34%. But you would lose 53% if you take $12,000 and put it in the beginning. So it's like smart DCA, right? Do you see what I mean? And of course, like what I'm showing you is it's not like just about making money. It's about losing money slowly. So pretty cool. And like Dogecoin, I mean, there's some crazy, things. Like for example, if I go here, let's see. So we're gonna run the same analysis on Dogecoin, and then okay, look at this. So it basically found that if it makes 17 trades from this time, from 2022, you would have had 26,000. But at the same time, if you took $8,500 and put it in the beginning, you would have 409%. So it doesn't mean it's like the most efficient play sometimes, right? So like I'm showing you, like, yeah, you might not lose as much, but you might also not gain as much. You might even, yeah. So, and then there's a bunch of different things here. So you can see like some things will trade more. For example, 125 trades. and this trading method is different. It's using the so it actually sells, and you can see here where it enters and when it sells. Like, it entered a bunch, and as some trends broke, it's like, hey, I'm gonna get out because this is scary. Yeah, I'm gonna lose money. And anything that's like no green line, it means it's still holding. So it means it's still holding on this trade. It's still holding on this trade, still holding. So pretty cool. I still, of course, this is work in progress. I'm just showing you how far I've gotten. So yeah, but pretty crazy. I mean, really fun. I think like you'll be able to play with it soon. I'm really just testing it at this point. By the way, this is what S&P looks like with a bunch of trading. If you were to use the same thing you used on that coin and you applied to Bitcoin, to S&P, you would have had 34% ROI. So basically, what is the point of all this? Well, what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to find if there is a universal pattern in the world, right? Is there such a thing? Like, are we living in a simulation? So, can I apply a set of mathematical rules against trends, right? So if you look at trends, can I apply some math that says it is likely that this won't break if maybe there's a bunch of trends under it, or maybe, it's like maybe something. So it's also still like I guess a way to get this out in the world, because I think we'll all talk about trends, but it's much easier to see them, right? Like they're there, and you don't need to go and chart them yourself. You can just come here and take a look. And yeah, the data here is not real time right now. It's like it's just a snapshot of data and only limited sources. But I don't know, maybe there's bugs. Like so, uh, I'll show you one more cool thing. So there's this thing which is still in progress. I'm still just kind of playing around with this idea, but I think sometimes I just, I want to wake up in the morning and I want to say, how are the markets doing today? And I don't want to look at trends. I want to look at some like video game, right? And for me, what I just see a bunch of animals here. It's weird. I don't know what's happening. But if you look, basically what it's saying is the price, like plus minus 9% right now, the winning power are the bulls, right? And you basically have this. If you look at, let's take a look at trends. So to explain exactly what's happening, so you see this trend here. If we look here, this is the one. It's basically saying, you know what, within 9%, 10%, plus minus 9%, I'm winning, and there's absolutely um, no downtrends. And if we take a look at something like Cardano, it's a very different story. There is basically within 30%, there is some resistance. And it's pretty big resistance, but at the same time, we have some support, about like 8,000 of support. So this kind of is like a pretty close battle, like, 4,000 versus 9,000. So pretty close. But if you look at something like S&P, it's not even close. I mean, you have like gigantic numbers here. Look at these guys. And there's like different levels to, so each thing is a trend. And, there's like different levels, meaning it's like you get achievements for each trend. So there's a lot of ideas. But if I were to look at it, I would say the bulls are winning right now, right? Or at the time of this. And if I look at Cardano, I would say the bulls are winning. But this doesn't look like the bulls are winning. But if you look here, they are. So that could be my bet, my thesis. Remember, behind each trade, you want a thesis. Like I think for me, it's not about when you hold. It's like, when do I buy? Like if I were to dollar cost average, when is a good time to buy? So same thing here. Damn, look at our price. Like, not bad, but you can actually see it's not bad, right? Because of this. And if I go here, yeah, I mean it's all just support. There's more trends. The lower the data is, the more trends you get, and it shows in the game as well. So yeah, I mean, I think for this video, it's like it's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you guys some progress. I'm working on it, and really just kind of polish before the release. And I just hope people don't think I'm crazy, because I don't know, I keep talking about trends, and It's just, I think this is a very useful tool. And, open source, you can fork it and continue my work and be like, do some other stuff with it. I don't know. It's just, yeah. Thanks, everyone.